All right. Welcome to my channel. My name is 12 Gauge. My channel is 12 Gauge Investigative. And today I want to dive into the personality traits of the Dark Triad and how it pertains to potential individuals to commit crimes and also to have the corresponding three areas that go along with each other and how they feed off each other. So here I'm going to show you a video and we're going to talk about it. And here we go.
As it is unsettling, the Dark Triad. These personality traits, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, might make for a good villain, but they're also real characteristics that can have serious implications. Stick with us as we unveil the complexities of these dark traits and their impact on both individuals and society. Don't miss out on the bonus point at the end of this video, which is crucial for protecting yourself against Dark Triad traits. 1. Exploring narcissism. Narcissism is a personality trait characterized by excessive self-love and a grandiose sense of self-importance. It's like having a mirror that only reflects one's own image, with little room for others.
Okay, there's not one of us in this world that hasn't been having a time in our lives where we cross paths with a narcissist. And you know, there's a difference between liking yourself and have positive self-regard. And then there's a total difference whenever you cross this type of individual because it's all about them. It's all about how they perceive their world as them being the most significant part. And everybody else is just playing a role to fulfill their fantasy of grandiosity.
But what are the key characteristics that define narcissism? At its core, narcissism is marked by an insatiable need for admiration and validation. Individuals with narcissistic traits often believe they are uniquely special and entitled to preferential treatment. They may constantly seek attention, praise, and adoration, all while lacking empathy for others' feelings and needs. Now, let's put a face to these characteristics with some real-life examples.
Lack of empathy. That seems to be thrown around a lot. And it seems to be something that automatically jumps out at you. It jumps out at you because most people possess it. If you don't know what empathy is, that's your ability to place yourself in another's place. Let's say that you hear about some bad news. If you have empathy, you're going to say, well, I'm so sorry, because I can understand exactly how that would affect you, because I can see how it would affect me if I was in that same position. Lack of empathy would put you in a total different mindset where it would be almost non-committal, non-attachment, where you wouldn't have the ability to even think about this other person or that situation.
Examples of narcissistic behavior. Picture someone who always finds a way to make any conversation about themselves, rarely showing genuine interest in others. Think of that colleague who constantly takes credit for team achievements, or the friend who never acknowledges your accomplishments. This behavior can strain relationships to breaking point. In personal settings, narcissistic individuals may struggle to form deep, meaningful connections because they prioritize their own needs above all else. In the workplace, their excessive self-focus can lead to toxic dynamics, hampering teamwork and fostering resentment among colleagues. 2. Unveiling Machiavellianism. Now let's take a deep dive into Machiavellianism, the second corner of the Dark Triad. It's a personality trait named after Niccolo Machiavelli, the famous Italian diplomat and philosopher. At its heart, Machiavellianism is all about being strategic, manipulative, and having a knack for achieving personal goals, often at the expense of others. The primary traits of
Okay, so you see how narcissism and the second one, they go hand in hand. It's a strategic avenue to get your own needs and desires met. So you go into planning how you're going to get this situation that you want to manifest itself. So it's almost like doing research on whatever the situation or the people in it. And the lack of empathy means that you don't care who gets hurt as long as your objective is met. And I choose that word, lack of empathy, because grandiosity and all those other words, they kind of all mean the same. It's like it's very self absorbed. So here you're setting up the situation to meet your desires.
a Machiavellian individual include a strong desire for power, a willingness to manipulate situations and people to their advantage, and a capacity for deception when needed. They're like the puppeteers of social dynamics, pulling strings behind the scenes. Now, let's see it in action with some real life examples of Machiavellian tactics and strategies. Think of a colleague who always seems to know just the right buttons to push to get what they want, even if it means playing office politics. Or consider that friend who can smoothly navigate social situations, making you believe they're always on your side, only to find out they've been playing both ends. In various contexts, Machiavellianism can erode trust faster than you can say strategic thinking. It can lead to a sense of betrayal when people realize they've been manipulated, and it can create a toxic environment where everyone is on edge, wondering who's pulling the strings. 3. Understanding psychopathy. First things first, what is psychopathy? Well, imagine someone who seems charming on the surface, but hides a complete lack of empathy underneath. Psychopathy is a personality trait characterized by a profound deficit in empathy, guilt, and a tendency toward antisocial behavior. Now let's break it down a bit further. Psychopathy isn't a one-size-fits-all trait. There's a difference between primary and secondary psychopathy. Primary psychopathy is the innate kind. Those individuals are born with it. Secondary psychopathy, on the other hand, is more of a product of one's environment, shaped by
Okay, so there's a nature versus nurture type thing. You know, you're either born with it or it's formed as trait through your experiences in life. And most people, they say that in the books that I've read, that the psychopathy is usually something that is formed early on, whether it be an unmet attachment, whether it be a perceived shunning or dispelling of love, understanding, or even experiencing things that have to do with traumatic events that you can't get over. So what's the best way to not feel this pain or not feel this lack of attachment? Shut your emotions down. And that kind of leads to what we're talking about right now.
experiences and upbringing. Think of it as nature versus nurture, but with a dark twist. Psychopathy isn't just something you read about in psychology textbooks. It has real world consequences in both social and personal situations. In social circles, psychopaths can be like chameleons, adapting to any situation to manipulate their way to the top. In personal relationships, their lack of empathy can leave a trail of broken hearts and shattered trust. I hope you're finding this video both informative and engaging. If you are, could you take a moment to show your support? A simple click on the like button, a comment sharing your thoughts, or hitting that subscribe button can make a real impact. 4. Overlapping traits and combinations. Now let's talk about what happens when the dark triad traits collide and create a personality cocktail that's both intriguing and challenging. It's like mixing three potent ingredients in a cauldron, and what brews is truly complex. Now, why is dealing with these combo players such a tricky business? It's because they possess a potent mix of manipulation, self-centeredness, and lack of empathy, making them formidable social navigators. They can
Okay, when you have these three things at the forefront, it's a very methodical, self imposed payoff. You want to manipulate others to get your desired result. It's all about you, and you don't care who gets hurt. So you say, why is this dangerous? It's because most people can never tell when they're being manipulated. Most people can never tell when somebody's self centered because the facade is, well, they care about themselves, they love themselves. But the manipulative tactic it's telling you it's not real. It's a form of deception to get what they want out of life. And the fact that they don't feel empathy even makes it even more dangerous because they don't feel that they're hurting somebody. They feel that all it is cause and effect. This is what I want, and this is how I'm going to get it.
be charming yet cunning, empathetic when it suits them, and utterly ruthless when their interests are at stake. The key to navigating relationships with these people is to stay grounded and maintain healthy boundaries. Recognize their tactics and strategies for what they are, and don't be swayed by their charm or intimidation.
So, the worst thing that can happen is you fall into it, you believe it, you become the victim, and it's so hard to get out of because then the mental warfare begins, the gaslighting, the blaming, the shifting accountability and responsibility. Because this individual is all about self preservation, meaning that they don't care about you. They don't care about what they say to you, they don't care about what they do to you. Because how could they care if they have no empathy? So look at most of the serial killers that we've had in time. Some of these traits definitely stick out in them, you know? And then we have the naysayers that say, well, there's no way this person can be that way. Look how charming they are. Look how they fit into society, or look how they had this or had that. Just because you have it doesn't mean it's real. Let me say that again. Just because you can possess it does not mean that it's real for the individual possessing the situation. I can tell you I love you all day long, and I can even try to show you love, but doesn't mean it's real in my perception if it's not. If I'm trying to manipulate you, if I'm just looking out for myself because I don't care about you getting hurt, I care about me getting hurt. So if I have no emotional attachment because of the lack of empathy, let the game begin.
Communication is key. Assertiveness can help maintain control over the dynamics. And remember, these individuals may push boundaries, but you have the power to set and enforce them. 5. Spotting dark triad traits. Pay attention to how people act, especially when the stakes are high. Dark triad individuals often reveal their traits through manipulative behavior, excessive self centeredness, and a lack of genuine empathy. Keep an eye out for patterns that don't align with healthy social interactions. Sometimes, your intuition can be your best friend. If something feels off in your interactions with someone, don't ignore that feeling. It might be your subconscious picking up on subtle cues of
That's why they say a lot of times that you can pick up an individual's traits by the way they treat others. So if you have an individual that talks down to women or tries to control women, this is a huge red flag. not because it's only socially awkward, but because it tells you about the mental capacity of this individual. They feel that they're not equal with the opposite genre. So therefore they deem everything, every thought to control, manipulate, and even at times annihilate. Because one thing a narcissist hates is a strong oppression to their desired effect. So if you get somebody who has boundaries and who has communication skills and won't let you run over them and who calls you on your stuff and all this other stuff, you're going to do one or two things. You're either going to run or you're going to get angry and you're going to fight them every chance you get. So if you're trying to control somebody to get your desired result, you're using manipulative tactics to guide them into thinking that their thought pattern is their own. It's very twisted, but many people do it.
Dark triad traits. Trust yourself. People around you often have valuable insights. If you notice friends or colleagues expressing discomfort or sharing negative experiences with a particular individual, it's a clue worth considering. To protect yourself from potential manipulation, knowledge is your best defense. Understanding dark triad traits helps you stay vigilant without becoming overly paranoid. Keep personal boundaries intact and don't be afraid to assert yourself when needed. Setting clear boundaries is like drawing a line in the sand, defining what's acceptable and what's not in your interactions. It's a shield against manipulation and a way to maintain your emotional well-being. 6. Coping and self-improvement. The first rule of engagement with dark triad folks is to keep your emotions in check. They may try to push your buttons, but staying calm and composed is your superpower. Respond with reason, not emotion, and avoid being drawn into their games. We've stressed this before, and we'll say it again. Boundaries are your shield. Clearly define what you will and won't tolerate in your interactions. Don't be afraid to assert.
And you know what's sad is YouTube and technology have created a lot of narcissists. A lot of people, they use manipulative words and tactics to try to get their desired result. And when they get a little pushback, they don't know how to respond other than with anger. That's why sometimes whenever you're talking about something on these platforms and somebody has heard something that oppresses their thought pattern or even challenges it, they're quick to tell you how wrong you are and how you should check out this person's theory or that person's theory, but they never give you their insight. They never give you their perception or perspective of the situation. So it's just a rehashed, rebranded opinion. And this is how you can tell that there's a lot of narcissists out there that are just using manipulative tactics and words to try to get their desired result, all in the name of speculation, all in the name of entertainment, all in the name of this is just my opinion. Listen to what they say in order to manipulate, to control, and to guide your thoughts, rather than to let you have your own.
Yourself when these boundaries are crossed. Now, here's the silver lining amidst the darkness. Dealing with dark triad personalities can be a catalyst for personal growth. Use these experiences to understand yourself and your own boundaries better. Learn to trust your instincts and refine your interpersonal skills. Overcoming these challenges can lead to increased emotional intelligence and resilience. However, sometimes the shadows can be too dark to navigate alone. Seeking professional help is a beacon of light in these situations. Therapists and counselors can provide guidance, support, and strategies for dealing with the more extreme manifestations of dark triad traits. Remember, you have the power to thrive even in the presence of darkness. With the right coping strategies, you'll emerge stronger, wiser, and better equipped to navigate the complexities of human interactions. Bonus tip: your secret weapon against the dark triad. All right, It's time to reveal your secret weapon for dealing with individuals sporting those dark triad traits. This is empathy and boundaries. Yes, you heard it right. These two concepts form your dynamic duo for mastering the art of handling dark triad personalities. Empathy is like your superpower. Try to understand where these individuals are coming from, even if it seems like they're from a different planet. Beneath the dark exterior, they might have their own struggles and vulnerabilities. While you don't have to condone their behavior, a touch of empathy can disarm their defenses and open up lines of communication. But wait, don't drop your guard fully just yet. Boundaries are your trusty shield. Maintain those clear, unwavering boundaries to protect yourself from manipulation and toxicity. Empathy doesn't mean becoming a doormat, it means understanding without surrendering your own values and needs. So, here's your secret formula: empathize, but don't enable. By combining understanding with unwavering boundaries, you become a force to be reckoned with in the face of dark triad traits. You'll be able to navigate these complex personalities with grace and resilience, turning challenging interactions into opportunities for growth.
And you say, well, how does this have anything to do with serial killers or people that are trying to hurt you? Well, if you have the proper boundaries in place, you're going to catch it. You're going to catch these individuals who are just out to get you. Now let's move along to
To
one of
you.
the
We
personality
think
traits that this entails, and this one's called stalking. Many people do not believe in this. They don't believe that people can survey you. They don't believe that people have the capability to be watching you without you knowing it. Here we go. So think about this a little bit. Well, stalking is the other person knowing that they're being watched due to unwanted gifts, unwanted letters, unwanted correspondence in some other way. But like you said, many people are unaware that they're being surveyed in a digital platform. And we've had some cases where digital stalking has been brought up. We've had some cases where it's been noted that individuals have had correspondence with other people, whether it's been unfounded or not founded, it's been spoken on. So there's a reason why it's been even brought up, because you wouldn't bring something up if it wasn't relevant in some capacity. You know, how far will an individual go to get their prey? Kind of like what we were just talking about, the Machiavellism, the strategic point of reference to get what you want. How far will you go? The narcissist says, "This is mine. I want this. I must have this, and I will go to any length to obtain it." So let's continue on. Well, think about that a little bit. He said they will go to extreme fashions to gain their victims' attention. And that leads me to a movie that I watched, and I might show a little clip where the killer says, "Do you see me now?" And that might not seem to be out of sorts, but think about it. Somebody's watching you and they're going above and beyond that you notice them, even though you don't see them. The satisfaction is to know that they've gotten into your head. Do you see me now? Do you hear me now? Are you sure that your eyes are wide open to the fact that this individual watches you? You always feel like there's something a little off. Could be going to the grocery store and it always seems like somebody's watching you. It always seems like everywhere you go, you bump into this mysterious person, either by accident or you tell yourself, how do I know that person? And how come I tend to bump into them more often than not? That's one scenario. Another scenario is just staying hidden, not wanting to be seen. Because if I stay hidden, you don't know that I'm watching you. I could be anywhere and everywhere, and you're oblivious to that situation. Let's take the IDAHO4 case for a second. There were reports that this individual was on the University of Idaho's campus more than once, and even seen by students in the student union building, to the point where one report stated that the individual would stare right through you, that the glares were so methodical that when this individual looked at you, you never forgot it. So, let's say you're in a student union and you're just walking around and you've noticed this individual once before because of the look. And out of the corner of your eye, you catch that individual seated all by themselves across the room as to just appear like they're doing schoolwork. But you notice them. And instead of drawing attention, keep walking. And then another time you notice them on campus. So many individuals, they ask that question, well, that individual might have been unknown to the victims, but was he really unknown or was he just overlooked? Because being unknown means that you had no kind of interaction with these individuals whatsoever. But if he was overlooked, could mean that he was everywhere and anywhere any of these victims could have been. And that's not without reaching. That's not without saying that it couldn't have happened. We have all these theories that place different entities happening that are not only without the realm of reason, but without the physical capability of this occurring, without multiple entities corresponding together. To be surveying somebody, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot, especially in a small college town. You can be all over that place. And what we've seen is there's a lot of white vehicles in that area. So if this individual truly was driving around in his white Elantra, he not necessarily would have stood out because there's a lot of white vehicles around that area. We don't notice these individuals until after the fact when we start to recollect memory and we say, oh, I remember that guy. Remember we were sitting here and he just walked by and kind of stared at us? We thought nothing of it at the time, other than that's kind of weird. But we didn't think he had the capability to do anything. And now we found out that this individual that we've seen more than once, we overlooked him. We overlooked the fact that they were always around. Because one thing that I believe that individuals are overlooking in this case, the capacity of this individual hunting out potential victims. We focus on the four because that was the murder on November 13th, 2022. That's what ended up happening. But how many other potential victims did this individual have on their list? Did you ever ask yourself what was the reason for this individual to go to the student union so much? Were there other potential victims that he was surveying, watching? Because just like this video says, you see in the movies somebody watching another, and that other person doesn't even have a clue they're being watched. They're being surveyed. Their everyday routine is being jotted down as a potential strategic planning for what. Did you hear what he just said? Potentially lose their job, stop eating and sleeping. Haven't we heard that this individual was up at all hours of the night? Kind of like right now at 2:20 in the morning. Why am I out? Because I slept all day off and on. If I wanted to go survey somebody, go watch somebody's house, take a trip 10 miles away and just go drive around, nobody would be the wiser. Because that's not a normal pattern for me. But to say that this individual took a lot of night drives, even went hiking and running in the middle of the night, that is odd behavior if you're looking at it through a profiler's eyes. That's not normal. And there's people that say, well, I do it. It helps me calm down. It helps me unwind. That's understandable. But on the night of a murder, you're not at home. You leave at 2:37 in the morning. What the coincidence in that? I've heard multitudes of videos talking about a planting, a frame job, whatever. 2:37 in the morning, you leave your home. You're caught on camera. You supposedly either turn your phone off, your phone goes dead, or you put it in airplane mode. Long enough for your destination to be attained, and by coincidence, you turn your phone on after the murders, heading in a different direction. And this is all what's been stated in the PCA, whether you believe it or not. I mean, that's what has been written, so it's not like something that I'm making up. I'm just paraphrasing it for you because I want you to think about that for a minute, because I don't think a lot of individuals really give it much credence. There's no way his car could have been there. There's no way it was his car. I believe that if law enforcement would have just held on to the information that they had on this individual and they would have never released any of it, we wouldn't be where we're at regarding the crazy theories that many people have about it. If they just would have held on to everything and not released anything, then we wouldn't be none the wiser. But the simple fact that they said we're on the lookout for this type of year, and then come to find out that the culprit's vehicle is a later year, it does spin a seed of doubt. Asking you what caused them to make that mistake. And is that mistake going to come back to haunt them? Back to the stalking though. 2:37 in the morning. What were you doing up? How come there was reports from your bottom stairs neighbor that you didn't sleep very much? How did you stay awake to be able to teach, to be able to maintain your studies? Nothing's been stated about his GPA. Was he passing? Was he failing? Was he struggling? None of that has been brought out. Not that we need to know, but that kind of tells a lot. If you're up and down all night long, you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're not doing all these things, then what the hell are you doing? Were you training for a triathlon? What were you doing? Yeah, if you've been hurt by somebody else, you say, well, that's not enough reason to kill them. But we're not talking about a normal mental state. We're talking about a very narcissistic, strategic, and had the drug use caused the psychopathy to occur? Was this individual thinking clearly? Or was he barely hanging on with his mental capacity to juggle all these new things that happened in his life? You can challenge me with a lot, but as far as drug addicts and alcoholics and behaviors are concerned, I've worked with a lot of them, and the patterns are all the same, pretty much. One thing that stands out there, they get overstimulated. They don't know how to react to stimuli where they can't control it. When the stimuli is uncontrollable and they become overwhelmed, they become stressed out, something new occurs, they're always looking for some way to cope with that. If they're not getting high and they're not drinking, how are they escaping that reality? Because that reality is always real. So I've done a video on this very early on about Brian. And it wasn't very popular because people don't want to see the capacity of an individual potentially having these kind of traits because it makes them real. Well, if you're not sleeping and you're not capable of maintaining behaviors with others that is not viewed as controlling, abusive, or anything like that, and it's causing issues in your job, how are you releasing that stress? But then we must, if you have one, you have to have the other. So if the individual is out in the late nights running, don't you believe he would be caught on camera running around his residence, being, being on camera heading out toward Wawa Park on previous attempts to calm his mind down? How many other times was he caught on camera heading out to that park during the day to release that stress, to release that feeling of overwhelmingness? Was he caught out there more than once heading that way? Or was he never caught on camera at all being in that direction? And if he wasn't, then the individual who is a thinker would kind of ingest that the individual never went out there to run. It's only common thought process. I mean, you can interject any kind of opinion at this point, but if you're looking at cause and effect, the what, the where, the how, the who, and the when, those questions get answered for you. And once those questions get answered, Then they start to collaborate a profile of an individual that could potentially be the suspect. I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm saying he's a suspect at this point in a quadruple murder. Will it end in his guilt? Only time will tell. Without throwing in all that other craziness that we've heard about for 2 years and some change, if you look at these scenarios and you ask these questions of yourself, then it kind of makes sense a little more than just holding on to other people's theories. If you really ask what was going on during that time period in this individual's life, if he wasn't using drugs, how was he responding to stressors? Because he was getting reprimanded by his superiors. He was signing papers to show that he was going to do better. And it was just a short period of time. What was his grade like at that point? Was he failing? Was he struggling? You know, was his mindset deteriorating? Because if you've never seen somebody under extreme stress that has had issues with drugs or alcohol or criminal behavior in the past, they crumble over time. And I saw this weekly because I used to see people on a weekly basis, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You see people that are doing well, people that are lying to you, manipulating you. Then you see people that are actively struggling. And how do you know they're struggling? Because they never sleep. They never are in a calm state of mind. They're always argumentative. They're always having issues with their temperament. Or they're totally shut down and they don't talk to anybody. But you say you're just trying to make him fit into this crime. No, I'm not. I'm just giving you examples of what I've seen in my career. If it fits, it fits. I'm not trying to make anything fit.
Thus, the more
And another thing that hasn't really been spoken on in that IDAHO4 case, we seem to hear that manifestos are popular these days, right? Elliot Rodger had one. The Mangione guy had one. And what if Brian had one on his hard drive? What if he had a manifesto of victims or potential victims and how the routine was choreographed into charts or just notes telling himself, okay, this person gets up at this time, they go to sleep at this time usually this is the high rate of time where there's a lot of people in the home. During these hours is when it calms down, there's hardly anybody there. This is the best day out of the week. Carry out your devious thoughts and actions. Strategy, the Machiavellianism, strategy. People sometimes do spree killings, but I don't believe this was a spree killing. I believe that this was possibly one of many potential outlets, and seeing that one of the victims was not going to be around anymore, maybe he chose the opportunity, which opportunity meets the payoff. The individual is going to take advantage of that because you're just going to take off from your home at 2:37 with no real aim in sight. Because if I'm the prosecution, I'm going to ask, well, what kept you from going to run at 4:30 in the evening, 3:30, even 8 a.m.? Why 2:30? Why 237? What significance did that time frame have to do with anything in your life? Because we're governed by the clock. So there has to be a reason for everything we do. People just don't do things out of the spur of the moment. More impulsiveness is there. I'm not trying to say that it's not, but most of the time we have clear directive of what we're doing because we're governed by the clock. We have such and such time for you to go survey, go watch. How many other times did this individual leave his house at 2:37 in the morning, or thereas any of that time frame? Because you say those 12 times were false. There's no way he could have been surveying this house 12 times. Okay. Well, let's look at other potential targets that this individual left his home in the middle of the night that caught him on camera. Because this wasn't just an investigation in one night. If you think that, then you're foolish. I'm sure they went months and potentially the whole time he was in the area looking and developing a pattern, a lifestyle that this individual lived. Because you have digital evidence is going to show you, okay, he left his home, he went down this street, he went down this street, caught him on this street. Okay, came to Moscow 12 times. Where did he go? Where did he go? What did he do? Did he go shopping? Let's look at his bank statement. Is there any odd situations? Did he go out to eat? Where did he go? Because very seldom do people pay with cash anymore. There's going to be a digital trail. On this date, where were you? Oh, here's your bank statement. It says you were in Moscow getting gas. You filled up, probably got something to drink. The itemized receipts state such. What were you doing? Okay. It's just an advertisement from here on out, I guess. Um, so think about this a little bit. The object of your affection. What is it that you want? How are you going to get it? You know, people talk about motive. There is no motive. This individual didn't know the four. You don't have to know these people intimately to want to do harm to these people. Do you believe that? You have to know these people intimately, like you've wronged me somehow. All I have to do is think that you've wronged me somehow. We could have bumped in, we could have bumped into each other anywhere. I'm kind to you and you reject me somehow, or you make fun of me with your friend, and I've been watching you and I've gathered the courage to say hello, and you reject it. Well, to an individual that we're talking about right now, they're not going to take that rejection lightly if it's been a pattern in their life where they don't know how to handle rejection. Because handling rejection is hard for people. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. Because it takes the ability to have empathy on what the other person would be feeling. Why are they saying no? Rather than viewing it as a personal attack, it could be nothing more than they're not interested in you. And here's the scene that I wanted to show you. Hopefully it won't copyright me. Let's watch this.
Hello, Kate. Aren't you gonna say hello?
Who are you? What do you want?
Don't be afraid, Kate. I'm not gonna hurt you.
Then why are you hiding in the dark? Just come out and talk to me like a normal person.
No, I'm not ready to do that yet. Kate, I just want to know if you like my surprises I left for you.
I'm not really big on surprises.
Gosh, that's too bad. Kate, because I have a lot more surprises for you. Oh, Kate. Honey, what am I gonna do with you? I just came to say hello, and then you ran from me. Gosh, that makes me angry. You don't want to make me angry. Oh, no. What did I say, huh? I'm not gonna hurt you.
So what do you think? Is it a possibility? Fear is the biggest control that many people use to get what they want. If I keep you scared, if I stay one step ahead of you, you're not going to know what's coming. Like I said, this individual could have been not seen, just overlooked. Overlooked. How much did that happen in his life where he was overlooked? We don't want to paint him as a creeper. Okay, so let's paint it as this individual wasn't seen very often by people. He was noticed for different reasons, but he wasn't seen. It's not like it's been stated that he was outgoing, that he had a great sense of humor, that he was a class clown, or he was always the jokester, or any of this stuff. What would cause the females in his classroom to feel as if he graded them harsher than the males? What would cause one of them to feel uncomfortable around him? And did this lead to other things where the feelings of rejection, stress, overwhelmed, reprimand, all this stuff, was it just closing in around him in a short period of time? Take a look around you. How many people do you really know? And how many people know you? Even on this YouTube platform, people can go into these chats and follow you from chat to chat, watching how you type, trying to gauge a personality from you. They could become infatuated with you and not even know you just based on your picture. Is somebody surveying you on these chats? Maybe you have a tendency to go into the same chat every day at the same time, watching the same channel. Did you ever notice that? There's the same people in those chats. How could you not have somebody surveying you and your tendencies, learning about you, where you live, learning a little tidbit because the host is always asking, so how's so and so? Or how's your family? Or how is this? Or how is that? Is your health better? Picking out little tidbits to get a profile on you. Maybe not to murder you, or maybe steal from you financially, hack into an account. It's a cruel world out there. And if we really look into the darkness of this triad, I can see why people want to live in denial, why they want to think that certain people are framed and never commit a crime. How the Delphi really didn't happen, how he was framed after all those years. I could see how that happens. Because denial is a defense mechanism to keep you from experiencing your own sense of disbelief, sadness, grief from your own past experiences in life. If you've ever had somebody murdered, if you've ever been wronged by the police, or you always felt like a victim of the police, or you didn't feel protected by the police, then of course you would have an uncompromised bias towards wanting to feel that this individual was framed or that they botched the investigation. But do your own questions. I posed a lot of them in this video. Another thing that people don't really look into, if this individual did this crime, how was he able to attend those appointments, go to the doctor's appointment, get his haircut without anybody being suspicious of any of his behavior? Was he already acted like that all the time, so it didn't bring around any red flags? He was already that type of person, so he was conditioned to stimuli throughout his daily routine, able to shut down any emotional connection other than hi and the occasional grin. Because a friend of mine brought up something interesting as well. In any of the photos that we've seen of the book sightings or any kind of lecture that he attended, he was always in the front row in those pictures. He was front and center. Have you ever heard that, sometimes things can be too close to you for you not to notice them? Where do you think you can't see the forest for the trees statement came from? If I'm front and center, you're not going to really think of me as anything more than just a energetic go-getter who wants to make sure that they get what they want. Not going to think of me as a killer, as somebody who's stalking or surveying, or somebody that has devious intent. No, that's just Brian. He's at the front of the class. He wants to learn. He wants to be better than so and so. That's what the average mind thinks when they see a photo. What if you're being suspected of a quadruple homicide? It goes much deeper than that. It's an art form to the point where people are specialists in body behavior, posturing, all these things. A posture can tell a lot. The eye movement, your speech pattern, all these things, they tell a lot. You don't think all the people in his class were interviewed? His potential students weren't interviewed? Supposedly there was one that kept a tab on his behaviors because they were so eccentric. What's Brian going to do today? Who is he going to go off on today? It makes your head hurt to try to figure this out. So it's easier to take the lighter, softer way. Because then you don't have to think about it. You just believe that this could potentially be exactly how it happened. That's why we look at old court videos. That's why we look at documents, and people want to be specialists in reading documents and all this other stuff, trying to find little nuggets to talk about instead of talking about the person who's accused of these murders. Let's talk about every other avenue that where people could have made a mistake. There's going to be mistakes made. There's going to be evidence that's suppressed. That's a given. Nothing spectacular. Where it's all going to matter is when the trial kicks off and how the trial goes. When the jury come to that conclusion of innocence or guilt, that's when it's going to make or break this individual. And one thing I don't think a lot of people believe in either is just because the state doesn't convict him doesn't mean that there's not a federal case against him waiting to be handed down as soon as he's found innocent of these murders. If he created anything that goes against federal guidelines, such as digital or cyber things that, he was found to have done by evidence that was not illegally obtained or any of this other stuff that you guys say, then the feds could just be waiting to drop an indictment on him. In my opinion, I don't believe this is the end of Mr. Koberger's journey with the law enforcement, because I believe it goes deeper than just the surface. Deeper than did he drive the car? Deeper than was that his DNA? I would take the surveillance avenue a lot more serious than you want to dispel it, because somebody has looked into his digital trail. What was his pattern like? The best way to catch a killer is to think like a killer. The best way to catch a criminal is to interject your mindset into the mindset of a criminal. That's how people could sit across from me and I could tell that they were lying. Not because I'm a criminal-minded person, but because I made it a mission to dive in to that darkness to see exactly where that darkness leads. And that darkness is a scary place if you can't control it. You can't let it consume you. That's why a lot of these law enforcement officers that get on these panels and they speak and they talk and they tell you about their expertise. Why would they lie about all that stuff? Why would they try to, of all the people on the planet, pick one person to ruin their lives, especially after they had such a hardship throughout their life with drugs? Why would they try to ruin them? One person out of all the people on the planet. How come it's not me? How come it's not you? You think, like I used to tell my clients, out of all the people on the streets, law enforcement just picked you and said, hey, you look like a likely candidate. You look like a drug addict. Let's pick you up and send you to treatment, send you to jail, send you to outpatient services, and make your life a living hell. Let's just pick you because you look like the type. That would make sense, but they had no clue who this individual was, remember? If you're going to frame somebody, you're going to catch them within the first couple of days. It's going to make it look like you were a hell of a police force that had all their stuff in order. There wasn't no cover up. There wasn't no frame. How they got to him will be seen. It'll probably be a lot more simple than everybody's made it to be. Because think about patterns in our daily living. Each of us has the potential to be stalked, has the potential to be surveyed. You don't think the police use the same thing? And was he able to feel overconfident after these murders and he continued his old behaviors, his old tactics? Because we don't know what happened in that whole month before they arrested him. Were they keeping tabs on him? Was he doing the same thing because he was arrogant? That he didn't get caught, that nobody thought it was him? Because in the PCA it states that his phone no longer pinged anywhere in Moscow after the murders. And if you don't believe that, go read the PCA slowly because it's in there. And it's not by interpretation. That's what the words say. There wasn't a second phone. There was only his phone. In my opinion. You can want it to be anybody under the sun but him. And that's commendable that you would stand up for an individual you don't even know. But at what point are you victimizing the four? Every comment, every statement, every argument you have on this platform, you might as well be taking that knife and stabbing it in their chests once more every time you speak in anger, every time you defend this person who you don't know. You want justice for them, right? How many of you on these platforms would re-victimize these individuals because of your ignorance to investigative tactics, to investigative questioning? A lot of you didn't even know what the difference between an interview and an interrogation was. Most of you thought that you could just bring in anybody off the street and interrogate them to the point where they're going to confess. And many people think that if you miraculously have evidence at the 0 hour that you can run into the courtroom and say, hold the trial, I got something that's going to exonerate him. It doesn't happen this way. And another thing you haven't asked yourself is if this individual was framed or if he was truly innocent of all the hearings that have been held up to this point, all the people with their hands on this case, the prosecution, the judge, the Supreme Court, somebody would have set him free. And it hasn't happened. So that's the question you should be asking yourself. What has caused that not to happen? Instead of trying to find the needle in the haystack to make it fit, ask yourself that question. How come the Supreme Court didn't turn him loose? How come the prosecutor hasn't turned him loose? Judge Judd didn't overrule all this stuff and say, okay, let's turn him loose. Because they have the capacity to do so. And they didn't. They haven't. Judge Hippler, up to this point, reviewing his case, didn't turn him loose. Didn't even go against the death penalty. So you want to scream at the top of your lungs for innocence. But instead of looking at reason, you look at justification for your cause. If I make it look shady, if I make it look devious or deviant, then I can sit here and have this stamp that this man is innocent and he deserves to be released. But you got to ask yourself, what's kept it from happening? If he's truly without merit, any of the evidence that's been held against him, without merit, he would be a free man like you and I. And that's yet to happen. And it won't happen, no matter how much you say free BK and he's being framed and this was insufficient and they found this and they said that and Anne said he was an innocent person, all this stuff. It doesn't matter if you don't have the evidence that can set you free. So there must be some strong stuff that is tying him to this crime. Otherwise, he would be a free man because they have the capacity to do so. The Supreme Court didn't free him. The highest court in the land didn't free him. Get your mind out of the payoffs and all this movie type stuff and look at reality. There's a reason he's still in jail awaiting trial. Some lady asked me, how come you always talk about this? Who are you trying to convince? I'm not trying to convince anybody. I have as much right to make videos as other people. The fact of the matter is, the ambivalence that I cause in my videos makes people uncomfortable. That's why they don't come over here. Because if you make people uncomfortable, they have to think about things. If they have to think about things, then you have the capacity to break down programming, brainwashing, that gives people the opportunity to make up their own mind rather than having other people make it up for them. Think about those statements that are said. I'm about to give you a boom. I'm about to show you something you haven't seen before. I'm about to show you how this individual has been framed. Those disclaimers get set in your mind, and it's hard for the individuals who don't have a lot going on in their lives to jump on these rabbit holes and stay there and even get angry and fight people for their beliefs. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're doing harm, all in the name of justice, that's when I have a problem with it. You're claiming you want justice for the poor, but you're doing so much harm along the way with your attitude, with your typing, with your comments. I have people that type comments, which I enjoy, but some of them act like I've never heard of this case and they're telling me the case for the first time. Or that I've not heard the parents talk, or that I haven't done my research regarding this case whatsoever. And it's interesting to me to hear this, to read it. Like they're giving me some nugget that I've never heard of or read or anything like that. Now, I have people on my panel that act like they've heard this for the very first time and it is the most intense information they've ever heard. They must not have been following it from day one, because I've followed this from day one. I may have not got all the information on screenshots or videos or any of that stuff, which I deeply regret, but my memory isn't delusional. I hope you enjoyed some of the things I talked about tonight. And if for chance you didn't, feel free to hit the dislike button. I'm not above having people not like me, because it is part of life. Doesn't mean that what I say is wrong and what you say is right. We agree to disagree. Maestro, cue that music.